In a cozy little house in Seattle, Washington, there lived an 8-year-old boy named Ethan Carter. He was an intelligent child, somewhat shy yet filled with dreams. Each day, Ethan eagerly awaited new adventures at school and the discovery of novel things around him. However, in that joyful life, one thing shadowed him like a ghost: type 1 diabetes. It was a significant challenge he had faced since childhood. Sarah Carter, Ethan's mother, was a strong and dedicated woman. She was not just a mother but a resilient warrior, always striving to provide the best for her son. Upon learning that Ethan had this illness, Sarah resolved to find every possible way to ensure that her boy received the best care. She diligently researched diabetes, how to monitor blood sugar levels, and the necessity of medical devices, such as a refrigerator to store insulin so that he could live healthily. However, the neighborhood they lived in, a community strictly managed by the Homeowners Association HOA, was not an easy place for decisions like these. This neighborhood was notorious for its rigidity and stringent regulations, epitomized by a group of tough women, including Rachel Smith. The HOA president, Rachel prioritized the aesthetic image of the neighborhood over the practical needs of its residents. The rules she imposed were not to be violated, and when Sarah decided to install a medical refrigerator for Ethan, Rachel could not bear it. What did she do to protect the image of the neighborhood? Rachel classified Ethan's medical refrigerator as an eyesore that could detract from the beauty of the surroundings. Not only did she send a warning letter to Sarah, but she also trespassed into their home and destroyed the refrigerator one evening. This act was not merely a serious invasion of the Carter family's personal property, but it was also an affront to Ethan's health. Sarah, with a heart full of worry and anger, witnessed that horrific scene in agonizing pain. Ethan's diabetes required careful management, and being without insulin for an extended period could lead to severe consequences. Sarah tried to remain calm, but seeing her son exhibit signs of low blood sugar made her heart tighten. She hastily called 911 and rushed to save her boy's life. The removal of the medical refrigerator was not just the destruction of a device, it was the dismantling of Ethan's health and life. Sarah felt her powerlessness in the face of Rachel's brutal actions. Tears fell. But amidst the storm of anger and worry, a strong determination was forming within her. Sarah felt the necessity to do something against the injustice. She could not stand idly by while her son suffered simply because of a woman who needed to assert her power in the community. Sarah decided she would not be defeated by the rigid regulations and inflexibility of the HOA. Instead, she would rise up and fight, not only for Ethan, but for all the children with diabetes in the neighborhood. Gradually, she connected with other parents in the community who understood the difficulties her family faced. They had heard the story of Ethan, the cruelty of Rachel, and empathized with Sarah's pain. Together, they decided to create a movement, a campaign to demand rights for the children requiring special care. Meetings were held in homes, and letters calling for action were written and sent to other families. Sarah fostered a spirit of solidarity, transforming her pain into momentum for many to join the struggle. They needed to raise their voices to be heard in a neighborhood managed by those who did not comprehend the importance of health. In Sarah's heart, a strong belief began to flourish that they could effect change. They could paint a new picture for their neighborhood, a picture where children could be cared for, loved, and live free from the fear of strict regulations. The story of Ethan and his mother's journey became an inspiration for an entire community, and women like Rachel would not easily extinguish that flame of love and determination. Sarah Carter, a single mother, has always placed her beloved son Ethan at the forefront of her life. Ethan's type 1 diabetes has become an inseparable part of the daily routine for the two of them. Sarah understands that in order to ensure Ethan's health, she must navigate numerous situations with skill and wisdom. However, those challenges do not always stem from illness. One frigid winter morning in Seattle, Sarah decided to install a small refrigerator in their home to store food and medications necessary for Ethan. This was not an easy decision, but Sarah knew that keeping Ethan's blood sugar levels stable was essential. The medical refrigerator would allow him to have access to necessary meals and medications, helping to manage his health more effectively. However, it was not long after the refrigerator was installed that Rachel Smith, the president of the Homeowners Association HOA, showed up. Once a pleasant neighbor, Rachel now loomed like a menacing presence in Sarah's life. She viewed the refrigerator not merely as a medical device, but as an object that tarnished the neighborhood's image. Rachel took it upon herself to dictate what was aesthetically pleasing and what was not, promptly declaring that Sarah had violated HOA regulations. "Mom, how can the refrigerator be ugly?" Ethan asked, his innocent eyes shining with curiosity. Sarah felt a wave of shame wash over her. She was not only grappling with her son's health, but now had to confront the stringent rules imposed by a difficult woman. Rachel did not stop there. She directed a group of neighbors to dismantle the refrigerator, and in a moment of panic, Sarah discovered it had been destroyed. A sense of fear and anxiety engulfed her. Sarah's unease intensified when she saw Ethan begin to show signs of low blood sugar. He wobbled and collapsed. "Ethan, are you okay?" she exclaimed, her emotions choking her throat. Sarah's life now felt like a nightmare. She called 911, running and crying, yearning for help to arrive. The moment the refrigerator was destroyed marked not just the loss of a device, but was a profound shock for both mother and son. Sarah knew that without an immediate solution, her son's health would be severely threatened. The emergency passed, but the rage in Sarah could not be quelled. She could not accept Rachel's ruthless behavior and the indifference of others who witnessed it. Driven by determination, Sarah decided to speak out. She connected with other parents in the neighborhood, building a movement against the HOA's regulations that Rachel was enforcing. In a letter addressed to all neighbors and parents, Sarah called for support. "We cannot continue to live in an environment filled with hatred and devoid of compassion. We must protect the health and happiness of our children. Let us prioritize safety over stringent regulations." The solidarity among parents began to grow. They started signing a petition and sending it to the HOA, demanding changes to the regulations that made caring for children's health challenging. The atmosphere within the community gradually shifted from silence to fervor. No one wanted to share the same fate as Sarah and Ethan. As for Rachel, she not only exhibited stubbornness, but also became arrogant, feeling that she held absolute power in her hands. Sarah knew that without more decisive action, Rachel would continue to make her and Ethan's lives even more challenging. Therefore, Sarah decided to sue Rachel for willful destruction. This was not just a battle for one mother. It was a fight for all those who felt oppressed. When the court opened for the hearing, many in the community came to support Sarah. They documented the proceedings in hopes that the truth would be unveiled. After hearing evidence and testimonies from both sides, the court concluded that Rachel had committed a serious wrongdoing and was held accountable for her actions. It was a victory not only for Sarah but for all who had endured unjust regulations. Ultimately, following the court's ruling, Sarah not only received compensation for the damages, but also earned the respect and admiration of her neighbors. They recognized that solidarity and compassion were values worth protecting and fostering. The Homeowners Association ultimately agreed to amend the regulations, permitting the placement of essential medical equipment without interference. The legacy of this fight became an inspiration for many families in the neighborhood. Sarah founded the organization Hope for Ethan, not only to support families with children suffering from diabetes, but also to raise awareness about children's health and rights within the community. The story of Sarah Carter and her son became a symbol of the power of love and unyielding resolve. It serves as a reminder that when we stand up for what is right, nothing can hold us back. When Sarah saw Ethan's medical refrigerator destroyed, her heart felt torn apart. She couldn't believe that such a cruel act could happen in the neighborhood she had come to regard as her home. The image of Ethan clutching the pillow and anxiously peering into the fridge searching for insulin vials was now just a painful memory. She felt a wave rise within her, threatening to drown every hope. Although she knew she was not someone easily defeated in that moment. Riding the crest of anxiety and despair, she suddenly felt alone. Ethan, with his wide, innocent eyes, had always been a tremendous source of motivation in Sarah's life. She had resolved to fight for her son's survival and health from the moment she received the diagnosis. Everything had been prepared. She had medically equipped Ethan thoroughly. Researched diabetes to arm her child with necessary knowledge. But now, in one terrible moment, an unfamiliar woman with a cold decision had destroyed all her efforts. The frantic anxiety never paused throughout the days that followed. After the rescue team had taken Ethan to the hospital, the doctors acted promptly, devising appropriate meals to stabilize the boy's hypoglycemia. However, the fear of what had just occurred lingered in Sarah's mind. The horrifying moments when she saw Ethan gently shaking on the hospital bed, his face pale, made her feel that everything was spinning out of control. A mother cannot accept this, Sarah told herself. She resolved not to let Rachel's cruelty affect Ethan's life or the lives of other children in the neighborhood. Her will became stronger than ever, not only for Ethan but also for other families struggling with the harsh regulations imposed by Rachel. Sarah knew she had to do something. Sarah began reaching out for support from other parents in the community. She gathered people together, sharing her story, calling upon those in similar circumstances to stand beside one another. "We cannot allow such cruelty to continue," she passionately stated at the first meeting. "Every child deserves to have a safe environment where their health is not under pressure from unreasonable regulations." As Sarah shared her story, she saw empathy in the eyes of many parents present who understood her pain and realized that they too could become victims of unreasonable rules in the future. Over time, the number of attendees at the meetings grew, and the idea of a robust protest campaign began to form. Sarah felt encouraged by this solidarity. Perhaps the strength of their united hearts could push back against what Rachel had caused. An official letter was drafted, calling on the HOA board to reconsider their regulations regarding the use of medical equipment in the neighborhood. "We do not simply want a refrigerator," Sarah wrote. "We want to protect the health and safety of our children. We cannot continue to live in fear that our children's health will become a threat because of those who do not understand or do not care." When this letter was sent, Sarah felt clearly that she had begun a new fight. A fight not only for Ethan, but for all the other children in the community. Sarah also knew that to succeed, they needed to change the perspectives of those around them, to engage with HOA members, and to make them understand that the health and happiness of children must come first. Sarah continued to work hard to identify allies who could support her in this fight. She spoke with neighboring families, and they quickly became companions, ready to stand up their voices, beginning to resonate throughout the neighborhood. They started organizing larger meetings, drawing the attention of more residents, and discussions became increasingly lively. Photos and videos of Ethan, the brave boy battling diabetes, were shared on social media, becoming a source of inspiration for many. Sarah's story was not just a simple tale of a mother and son, but rather a movement fighting for the rights of children facing chronic conditions. Each meeting became an opportunity to raise awareness, encourage sharing, and create efforts to protect children. Amidst the tireless efforts, Sarah saw that the strength of human will and community cohesion could lead to positive change. She understood that life could bring difficulties, but allies would be the motivation to help her overcome each challenge. Sarah and Ethan's story would not merely end as a personal struggle, but it would become a symbol of love and perseverance in the journey to protect children for the generations to come. Sarah Carter sat in her living room feeling heavy-hearted as the sunlight streamed through the window. Yet it couldn't dispel the worries weighing on her mind. The pain of the injustice that her son Ethan had just endured lingered ominously within her thoughts. She could not accept that Rachel Smith, the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, could act so callously as to destroy the medical refrigerator, a crucial device for Ethan's health, simply due to personal biases and inflexible regulations. Sarah understood that she needed to take action. She was not only representing Ethan, but also all the other parents in the community who might be facing similar situations. She decided that she could no longer remain silent and endure the injustice. If she didn't speak up for her son's rights, who would? She called upon the hearts of those around her, seeking solidarity from fellow parents. In her mind, the image of Ethan the boy, with the beaming smile who struggled with hypoglycemia, reminded her that no one else could stand up for the injured children. Sarah began by drafting a letter to the parents in the neighborhood. She emphasized the urgent situation that Ethan had endured and invited everyone to join a meeting to discuss the injustices they faced. She skillfully pointed out that while the HOA regulations may be well-intentioned, they were too rigid and failed to meet the essential needs of families with sick children or individuals with disabilities. She hoped that their sympathy and support would forge a strong enough coalition to help her fight for justice. Through each word, Sarah conveyed her determination and effort, urging everyone to rise together. She sent emails, posted announcements on social media, and even created a chat group to facilitate communication among parents. The response from other parents was more positive than she had anticipated. They began sharing their own stories about the challenges they encountered with the HOA regulations. One anonymous mother recounted how her daughter, a child with autism, needed a quiet space to decompress, but was criticized for not making their garden as beautiful as other households. They felt they were not alone, and Sarah became a symbol of this struggle. The first meeting was held at Sarah's home. Despite her worries about the turnout, the atmosphere in the room became lively. With nearly 20 other parents attending, Sarah had prepared various documents, legal grounds, and examples of how the HOA regulations could be revised to create a safer environment for children with illnesses. She not only recounted how Rachel had abused her authority, but also pointed out that rigidity could lead to serious consequences, just as Ethan had experienced. The stories shared by other parents truly heightened the emotional atmosphere. She felt the empathy radiating from her small home, as they all understood that the desire to protect their children should not be taken lightly. Outspoken words were filled with outrage, while faces shone with determination, creating a profound momentum that anyone could feel. Sarah had fostered a movement, a solidarity within this small community. It seemed that everyone had found a common motivation, not just to safeguard their children's rights, but also to reinforce the values of dignity and respect in their community. During the meeting, they discussed not only Ethan, but also all the other children and the difficulties faced by families daily. Gradually, Sarah noticed the fire in the eyes of those around her. This not only reflected support, but also an overwhelming strength rising within them. They decided to write an official letter to the HOA demanding a reconsideration of the regulations, not reluctantly, but with an open discussion seeking solutions. The unity from the parents propelled Sarah into a larger battle. She was no longer just a mother seeking protection for her son, but had become a symbol of a powerful movement representing many other parents fighting for children's rights. Along with her love for her son, she now bore a greater responsibility to the community, and Sarah was ready for whatever lay ahead. She believed that with united effort, their voices would never be dismissed. Sarah's story had become an unstoppable voice within the community, inspiring those who felt isolated in their lives. and from here a new struggle officially began, not just for Ethan's health, but for a fairer policy for all children in this neighborhood. In the context of tensions with the Homeowners Association, HOA, Sarah Carter felt as though every door was closing before her. Following a heartbreaking incident in which Rachel Smith, the HOA president, unilaterally destroyed her son's medical refrigerator, Sarah could no longer sit idly by. She understood that it was not just Ethan who was affected, but also many other families who might be facing similar challenges. The love for her son fueled Sarah's determination, prompting her to take action. Sarah began to write a letter addressed to parents in the community. She wanted them to share her concerns and frustrations regarding the HOA's strict regulations, which were threatening the health and safety of their children. In the letter, Sarah not only presented Ethan's situation, but also skillfully pointed out the potential ramifications for other families if they failed to stand up for their rights. At the beginning of the letter, Sarah wrote, "Dear parents, in recent days I have experienced one of the worst nightmares of my life as I witnessed my son suffer from severe hypoglycemia due to the ignorance and ruthlessness of a member of our community. When I think about this, I not only think about Ethan, but also about all of our children. Wonderful kids who are in need of our protection and support." Sarah emphasized the HOA regulations, which sometimes in their seriousness about maintaining the neighborhood's image, overlooked the fact that within those rules live human beings, and there are children who need care. She described her ongoing anxieties when imagining Ethan living without the essential medical equipment tied to his survival. "We cannot stand by and watch children suffer simply because of heartless regulations," she added. The letter was passed around, each recipient feeling deeply moved. They were familiar with the pain that Sarah was experiencing as they too had faced difficulties in caring for their own children. Sarah touched the hearts of every parent, kindling empathy and determination for change. When reading the letter, many found themselves asking, "If this happened to my child, what would I do?" As time passed, Sarah began to receive support from many parents in the neighborhood. They started participating in meetings, discussing how to organize a more robust campaign against the HOA's tyranny. Voices began to rise, starting with small questions, then developing into strong viewpoints that ignited everyone's passion. Sarah organized a meeting at the local park, where parents and children could gather and share their thoughts. The atmosphere was filled with anxiety, but also determination. She prepared a speech to open the workshop. "We are all people who love our children, and no one of us should have to endure this injustice. We need to act now to protect the health and lives of our children. Let us build a community where every child feels safe and loved." The meeting was more successful than anticipated. Parents expressed their outrage at how Rachel and the HOA handled the situation. Together, they agreed on the need to call for an official meeting with the HOA, demanding that they listen and implement necessary changes in the regulations related to children's health. Sarah and the parents began drafting a collective letter to the HOA outlining their demands and legitimate reasons why the regulations needed to be changed. They proposed a new regulation that would allow essential medical equipment to be installed in homes without interference, aimed at ensuring the safety and health of children like Ethan. In the end, Sarah and the parents worked tirelessly, transforming their anxieties and outrage into concrete action. They not only protected their own rights, but also opened a brighter future for the children in the community. Their story was not just a legal battle. It was also a profoundly humane journey, affirming the value of compassion and the strength of solidarity. Sarah Carter felt a surge of pain and frustration swell within her as she looked at her son's medical refrigerator now vandalized. She understood that every moment was precious, and Ethan's health was not something to be compromised. In that moment, a strong decision formed in her mind. Sarah could not accept the cruelty and inhumanity of Rachel Smith. She decided to do more than just seek support from others. She aimed for a more decisive action: sue Rachel for the act of vandalism. Filing a lawsuit was not merely a legal action, but it carried a powerful message. Everyone must be held accountable for their actions, especially when those actions affect the health and safety of children. Sarah had spent many sleepless nights, her mind swirling with thoughts on how she could act to protect her son's rights. Every time she thought of Ethan, who she had fought so hard to ensure could lead a normal life, a wave of indignation washed over her. No one had the right to decide Ethan's life. No one had the right to take away what he needed to live healthily. The first thing Sarah needed to do was find a lawyer experienced in similar cases. She browsed online research and reached out to numerous law offices until she finally met someone who not only understood the law, but also empathized with her situation. This lawyer was dedicated and passionate. Someone Sarah trusted would stand by her side in this fight. As the lawsuit officially began, Sarah felt as if she were standing in the midst of a battlefield, where she was not only fighting for her son's rights, but for all the other parents in the neighborhood. She was not just a mother to those around her. Sarah had become a symbol of resilience and determination. She was determined to prove that Rachel, as the HOA president, could not arbitrarily make decisions that could endanger a child's health. With each court session that passed, Sarah found herself growing stronger. She meticulously prepared evidence, medical documents, and the heartfelt sentiments of parents within the community. Sarah wrote letters urging others to speak out and share their experiences of the cruelty they endured due to the HOA's unreasonable rules. She wanted not only compensation for the damages, but also to change how people perceived the HOA's regulations. Every morning, before entering the courtroom, Sarah would often look in the mirror, reminding herself that she was not only representing herself, but also all the other children and families like Ethan. This motivated her not only to bolster her fighting spirit, but also to feel more connected with those facing similar circumstances. As the day of the verdict approached, Sarah received overwhelming support from the parents in the community. Stories, shared experiences, and letters urging for the protection of children created a warm atmosphere uniting everyone. They held meetings to discuss the next steps, receiving updates from the trial with anxiety, yet full of hope. Ultimately, the moment of resolution held significance, not only personally, but also for the entire community. When the verdict was announced and the court recognized the damages suffered by Sarah and Ethan, tears rolled down the cheeks of many. They had fought not just for their own rights, but for every child facing similar hardships. This was not only a victory for Sarah and Ethan, but also a triumph for compassion and unity within the community. Sarah felt that her efforts had helped change not only her son's life, but also revived the values of humanity in society. A clear message had been sent. The health and safety of children are worth more than any regulation, and everyone needs to stand up to protect the rights of the children they love. Sarah's legal battle did not end at the courtroom door. It marked the beginning of a greater movement, a new life for all those suffering under unreasonable regulations. Suing Rachel was not just a personal judgment, but a pivotal moment, opening opportunities for the community to stand tall and fight for their rights, and for the children needing protection. Sarah's story has truly become a powerful voice for those who have yet to speak up. In the days that followed, Ethan's medical refrigerator being destroyed, the atmosphere in the Seattle neighborhood felt heavier. Sarah, burdened by worry for her son's health and anger over Rachel Smith's cruel actions, decided that she could no longer sit idly by. She needed a strategy not only to restore peace to her home, but also to protect the interests of other children in the community. Sarah began seeking support from the parents in the neighborhood. She sent letters to each household inviting them to attend a meeting to discuss the situation and what was happening with the HOA. She knew that she was not alone. Many others might be struggling to ensure their children's health due to the stringent HOA regulations. At the meeting held in a nearby park, a group of parents gathered. Each of them had their own concerns about maintaining their children's health. Sarah's story touched their hearts. They came not only to listen, but also to share their own experiences. Those with children facing various medical conditions had also encountered similar challenges when trying to protect their kids in an unfriendly environment. As time passed, the meeting grew lively and emotional. Sarah skillfully used her persuasive talents to engage everyone in this struggle. She emphasized that not only Ethan, but all the other children in the neighborhood deserved the support that medical equipment provides. They had the right to live in a safe environment where their health was not trivialized by aesthetic regulations. We cannot allow one individual to strip away the rights of our children, Sarah said with a strong voice. We need to stand up not just for our own kids, but for this entire community. If we do not act now, then who will protect the other children in the future? Tears rolled down the cheeks of many parents as they listened to Sarah. They began to realize that they were all facing a common issue, and only by standing together could they create change. They discussed ways to fight back, from submitting petitions to the HOA to organizing meetings to raise awareness about children's health issues. Within a week, Sarah and the other parents began gathering signatures to submit to the HOA requesting changes to the unfair regulations. They worked tirelessly, going door to door, explaining the current situation and why action was necessary. Surprisingly, the signatures kept increasing, including those from neighbors who had previously sided with Rachel. Notably, the strength of relationships within the community helped spread this message. The stories of children with health issues, the heartbreaking moments parents faced when they couldn't meet, their children's health needs made everyone feel more connected than ever. Step by step, a powerful movement was forming. After collecting enough signatures, Sarah, along with a group of parents, decided to send an official open letter to the HOA. In the letter, they clearly outlined what had happened to Ethan and requested a meeting with the HOA management to discuss the regulations that needed to be changed. They emphasized that these regulations not only harmed children's health, but also contradicted the community values that everyone deserved. When the letter was sent, Sarah felt something very powerful. She felt as though she had contributed to a unified voice, and this daring move was indeed a risk. But she knew that if she didn't take action, no one else would stand up for the rights of the children. With the determination and solidarity of the parents, Sarah became a symbol of community strength in this fight. They were not only fighting for themselves, but also for the future of all children in the neighborhood, prompting those who had once been skeptical to reconsider. By the end of the month, they had prepared for a large meeting with the HOA. It was time to bring their story to light. Once again, emphasizing that the health and safety of children should be a priority, even if it meant combating seemingly innocuous regulations. Sarah believed that they would succeed not only for themselves, but for all those who needed protection. The courtroom on that day was saturated with emotion, filled with numerous parents, neighbors, and friends, all gathered to support Sarah and Ethan. The atmosphere was tense, with an undercurrent of anxious anticipation flickering in every gaze. Sarah stood in a corner of the room, her eyes fixed on her son, the sole focus of her struggle throughout this battle. Ethan, dressed in a small suit, was both eager and anxious, not fully grasping the importance of the unfolding events around him. As the trial began, Sarah's attorney, an experienced litigator in civil cases, rose confidently to introduce his client and explain the reason for her presence in court. He commenced with the question, as a mother who has the right to strip away the safety and perfect surroundings of a child, every day, Sarah Carter must fight not only against her son's diabetes but also against the shortcomings of another woman, Rachel Smith. When Rachel was called to the stand, she appeared relatively calm, holding documents, and dressed in a neat suit, as if the matter did not concern her at all. Sarah's attorney presented clear evidence that Rachel had deliberately damaged the refrigerator, which not only jeopardized Ethan's health, but also inflicted psychological suffering on their entire family. He showcased photos of Ethan during moments of distress when his blood sugar levels dropped dangerously low, leaving those present in the courtroom unable to hold back tears. When Rachel's lawyer began to rebut, she wasted no time criticizing Sarah for allowing her son to become overly reliant on medical equipment. Rachel used sarcastic language to comment on Sarah's choices, implying that the installation of the medical refrigerator was somewhat poorly received in the neighborhood context. However, the shock of Rachel's petty arguments was soon countered by the strong evidence presented by Sarah's side. Sarah's lawyer cited regulations regarding the legal rights of individuals with illnesses and emphasized that everyone has the right to live and receive treatment safely without being constrained by unreasonable local regulations. He contended, a neighborhood cannot be turned into a prison by absurd and cold mandates. He pointed out that the health and safety of children can never be jeopardized for the sake of conformity dictated by the Housing Maintenance Association. Following the sharp debates, the court proceeded to review the evidence while listening to witnesses from the community. The testimonies from neighbors genuinely touched the emotions of those present. They shared the concerns and hardships that Sarah's family had endured, discussing how Rachel's rigidity had disrupted the peaceful atmosphere of the neighborhood. Parents spoke about their responsibilities in ensuring their children could live in a safe and healthy environment. As it came time for the judge to deliver the verdict, the atmosphere in the courtroom grew increasingly tense. Each word spoken by the judge seemed to underscore the significance of this decision, which resonated not only for Sarah and Ethan, but for all families in the area. The final ruling of the court determined that Rachel had acted maliciously, affirming Sarah and Ethan's rights and obligating Rachel to compensate for the damages she had caused. This ruling not only brought relief to Sarah and Ethan, but also sparked surprise and excitement within the community. Many began to clap, a wave of applause reverberating throughout the courtroom, making Sarah feel as if everyone was standing by her side. Tears of joy streamed down her cheeks as she embraced Ethan, feeling the power of their rightful triumph. "We did it," Sarah whispered into the boy's ear. "We proved that a mother's love is stronger than the malice of any adversary." Their journey hadn't ended there, but with this verdict, both mother and son could see a glimmer of hope and a brighter future ahead, one where Ethan could live without fear, and where all children had the right to protection. As they left the courthouse, Sarah and Ethan were welcomed by the community as heroes. They fought not only for themselves, but also paved the way for others in the neighborhood to live in safety and health. Their story was not merely a legal battle, but a symbol of hope, solidarity, and the courage to protect the rights of the vulnerable. After the landmark ruling from the court, the atmosphere in the Seattle community became more vibrant than ever. Neighbors who previously may have only known each other through hurried nods while walking by now stood united in support of Sarah and Ethan, creating a powerful wave of advocacy for the rights of children with illnesses. The meeting was held in a cozy setting at the neighborhood community center, inviting all residents. The air before it began was tense yet filled with hope. A sense of fairness and solidarity quickly spread as people exchanged their thoughts and feelings about the situation at hand. Sarah, with fervor and determination, was given the floor to speak first. She placed her hands on the table, her gaze unwavering, starting by recalling the hardships her family had endured under the oppression of Rachel and the HOA regulations. "I stand here, not just for Ethan. I stand here for all the children in this neighborhood, those with special health needs that we cannot ignore." She stated, her voice compelling and strong, capturing everyone's attention. All eyes were on Sarah as she continued. "We have witnessed the unnecessary cruelty of one individual, an action that can impact the safety of children living with medical conditions. We can change that. We can make this neighborhood a safer place for all children while helping families feel supported and encouraged. As she spoke, the inspiration among the attendees grew. One neighbor stood up, sharing, "I have a niece who also has diabetes. I used to worry about whether we could create a good environment for her." Rachel has sent a harmful message, but now's the time for us to reverse that. Each person had their own stories, their anxieties, and their desires to protect their children. Other parents began to share the difficulties they faced with HOA regulations, which only strengthened the bonds among them. Applause erupted several times during the meeting, creating a powerful sense of empathy among families. As the discussion continued, Sarah proposed the establishment of a new community council tasked with creating clear regulations and assisting families with sick children, demonstrating to the HOA that children's health should be the top priority. We cannot allow rigid rules to jeopardize the survival and happiness of our families, she emphasized. A woman in the community shared, "I think we should conduct a survey to find out what medical equipment needs all the families require. We can compile a list to send to the HOA, helping them understand that this change is not only necessary, but is also strongly supported." As the meeting concluded, hopeful expressions were evident on everyone's faces. They had painted a new vision for the neighborhood where regulations would not stand as barriers to healthcare needs. In the following weeks, small meetings and surveys were conducted, and the community grew stronger than ever. They adjusted the content of the HOA rules, while systematically submitting requests to gain consensus from the HOA leadership. Support came not only from families with sick children. Many who did not have young ones actively participated, recognizing the importance of safeguarding children's health in the neighborhood, understanding that every child deserves a safe and supportive environment. Ultimately, an HOA meeting was held with a large turnout of residents. Sarah, along with other community representatives, was present to present the proposed regulatory changes. While Rachel still held her opposing view, the community's participation swayed many other HOA members. After hours of discussion and listening, the HOA agreed to implement new regulations. This not only made families with sick children safer, but also created an environment where everyone could live with more freedom and peace of mind. This event marked a significant turning point in the lives of the neighborhood residents. They realized that their voices could create change, that unity was a powerful force that could help them overcome any challenge. Sarah became a symbol of resilience and courage, an inspiration not only for her neighborhood, but for families of sick children across the country. Sarah's story was not just a personal victory, but also marked a step forward in safeguarding the health of the most vulnerable in society, opening a hopeful future for children like Ethan. When the verdict was announced, the atmosphere in the Seattle neighborhood transformed completely. A wave of support emerged from neighbors and parents near and far, creating a more positive ambiance. Notably, this event opened a new opportunity for the community to collectively seek and promote better regulations that align with the real needs of the people, rather than just enforcing dry and unreasonable rules. Sarah felt the power of solidarity. Many stood by her, opposing Rachel's actions and calling for change. Interactive gatherings, small meetings on front porches, and discussions on social media helped Sarah build a rich support network. Her story was no longer just a personal battle. It had evolved into a larger movement, awakening the conscience of everyone in the community. She decided to call a formal meeting with representatives of the HOA and invited everyone to attend. During this meeting, Sarah presented clearly and persuasively the reasons why new regulations were necessary to protect the health and safety of all children in the neighborhood, especially those like Ethan, who required medical equipment to maintain their daily lives. Every child deserves to live in a safe environment where they can grow and learn without being bound by unreasonable rules. Sarah stated, her eyes shining with determination. We need to change our own behaviors so that children like Ethan can live healthy lives without fear of discrimination or exclusion." Other parents wholeheartedly agreed with the points Sarah raised. They began to share personal experiences and similar stories about the difficulties they encountered in caring for their children, particularly those with chronic illnesses. It was at this moment that Sarah felt clearly that she was not alone in this fight. Everyone around her shared a common voice, and the strength of community will surged like a charged cloud ready to burst forth. During this time, support from health professionals was also a key factor. Sarah proactively reached out to several doctors and nurses in the area to attend the meeting. They all agreed that medical equipment such as medical refrigerators was not only necessary, but vital for diabetic children. We cannot allow regulations to inadvertently hinder the basic rights of children, one doctor declared resolutely. The meeting concluded with an atmosphere of hope and determination. The parents agreed to collaborate on drafting a petition to submit to the HOA demanding an update to regulations to allow sick children to use necessary medical equipment without obstruction. A week later, with support from the community, Sarah collected enough signatures from parents in the neighborhood and sent the petition to the HOA. Tensions heightened when Rachel, in her capacity as chairperson, opposed and attempted to push back these changes. However, after lively exchanges between the two sides, Sarah realized that Rachel represented not just an individual, but also a part of an outdated management system that needed to change. Under increasing pressure from the community and approval from experts, Rachel was forced to acknowledge that HOA regulations needed to be updated to align with modern life. After several weeks of debate and discussion, the HOA finally approved the updated regulations. This was not just a victory for Sarah and Ethan, but for all the children in the Seattle neighborhood. The newly enacted regulations provided a legal framework to protect children's health rights. Residents of the neighborhood organized a small celebration to honor this change. Sarah understood that only when people unite and stand up for what is right can their collective strength bring about positive change. From that point onward, hope for Ethan was born, symbolizing the struggle of a mother, not just for her son, but for the entire community. Sarah held workshops to advise other parents on how to protect their children's rights, while also raising awareness of issues related to children's health. Change does not just come from decisions on paper, but from the thoughts, feelings, and actions of each individual in their small corner of the neighborhood. Sarah's story from a personal struggle has become a catalyst for the entire community to rise up and fight for the rights of children in need of assistance. The new regulations are not mere dry laws, but a guarantee of a better life for all children for the future that Sarah and her neighbors have built together. This story reminds us that the strength of the community exists right amidst rules and regulations. What is crucial is to find ways for those rules to become bridges, not barriers to the growth and safety of the younger generation. Sarah Carter. After facing painful upheavals and an unending struggle for the life of her son, did not merely stop at advocating for Ethan's rights or evaluating her relationship with the Homeowners Association HOA. She recognized that she could do much more for families confronting similar challenges. With strong commitment, Sarah decided to establish a nonprofit organization called Hope for Ethan. The goals of this organization are clear: to create a support network for families with children suffering from diabetes, provide essential information about the illness, offer guidance on care, and most importantly, help them understand their rights within the community. Sarah understands that raising awareness about diabetes is critically important, not only to enhance understanding, but also to create a safer environment for children. Initially, Sarah faced many challenges in fundraising and garnering attention from the community. However, she never lost heart. Sarah organized workshops, inviting specialists to speak and share insights about childhood diabetes and how to manage the condition easily and effectively. Each meeting attracted numerous parents and interested individuals who shared experiences, lessons learned, and collectively sought beneficial solutions to the issues they faced in their daily lives. In addition to raising awareness about diabetes, Hope for Ethan focuses on creating practical support for families. The organization began receiving donations from individuals and local businesses to establish a financial support fund for families in difficult circumstances. Sarah believes that every parent deserves support, not only in terms of information but also through concrete resources when needed. With relentless efforts, Hope for Ethan gradually became a valuable resource for the community families that once felt isolated and anxious, found comfort and motivation through connecting with one another. Sarah not only helped them understand diabetes but also instilled hope, something that traditional medical treatment can sometimes struggle to provide. Beyond workshops, the organization also planned to organize sports events, picnics, and recreational activities to help children with diabetes realize they are not alone. These programs not only provide opportunities for children to meet friends, but also enable parents to converse, share, and support each other. Gradually, they formed a close-knit community where no one has to feel deprived of affection or concern. The story of Sarah and Kama, Hope for Ethan, quickly spread beyond the borders of Seattle. Other organizations began to learn from her model and apply it in various communities. Sarah unexpectedly received numerous invitations to workshops, television shows, and media interviews. She shared her story of struggle of a mother courageously standing up against injustice and of a child needing protection. Sarah does not stop at helping families with children suffering from diabetes. From her story, she wants everyone to understand that every voice holds power and every action can make a difference. The challenges she and Ethan faced have driven her to develop a practical plan, not only to prevent similar cases from occurring in the future, but also to build a society with more humane values. Moreover, Sarah also organized gatherings where people could share the difficulties they encountered while supporting their children. She created a friendly, open environment where everyone felt free to express their views and seek help. These meetings not only help alleviate stress, but also foster friendship and strong community support. Ultimately, through Sarah's tireless efforts, Hope for Ethan became a robust organization, spreading positive messages about health solidarity and social responsibility. Sarah realizes that the fight she and her son are in not only benefits them, but also creates connections for many other families across the nation. The legacy that Sarah leaves behind is not just an organization, but a powerful movement reminding everyone that the health and safety of children always need protection and love. Life will always present numerous challenges, but as long as we unite and stand up together, everything can change for the better. The story of Sarah Carter, beginning in a tense and confrontational situation, evolved into a powerful journey of struggle and hope. From the very first pages, as Sarah faced the difficult decision of installing a medical refrigerator for her son, to her legal battles against Rachel Smith, we clearly see that the strength of a mother's love for her children is not only a driving force but also a great source of inspiration for the entire community. When Sarah decided not to back down in the face of pressure from the HOA, she channeled her anger into a source of motivation. She fought not only for Ethan's safety, but also for the rights of all parents, with children facing similar health challenges. Sarah's resolute actions evoked compassion in many hearts. Other parents saw here a model of endurance and determination. They not only supported Sarah, but also began questioning the role and responsibility of community regulations regarding the health and safety of their children. As Sarah wrote a letter calling for support from parents in the neighborhood, she aimed not just to change regulations, but to foster unity among those sharing similar concerns. That letter was not merely a request for amendment, it was a call for collaboration, bringing people together to protect children's rights. This demonstrated that the power of a community can overcome any barrier, and when people act together, they can change long-standing rules. The hearing was not solely for Sarah and Ethan, but also an opportunity for every member of the community to be heard and to understand the hardships many families face. The court's decision was not just legal in nature, but profoundly significant regarding the respect for the rights and health of the neighborhood's children. It became a landmark decision affirming that children's health and happiness are paramount, not rigid regulations. Following the ruling's support from neighbors, including those who had previously been skeptical, transformed into organizing meetings to discuss changes to HOA regulations. These meetings became not only platforms for sharing viewpoints, but also lively discussions about health, safety, and the real needs of each family. Everyone understood that in a mature society, prioritizing children's health is not just an individual family's responsibility, but requires the collective effort of all. When the community officially passed new regulations, allowing the setup of necessary medical equipment without harassment, it was not just a victory for Sarah, but for countless other parents as well. Those decisions opened doors for positive change, redefining how community regulations need to adapt to the practical needs of life. Above all, Sarah's story laid the groundwork for a valuable legacy. The organization Hope for Ethan emerged as not only Sarah's support group, but as a testament to the community's strength in advocating for the rights of children with diabetes. This organization has become a bridge helping other families, providing information resources, and creating a robust support network for parents grappling with similar challenges. The final message of Sarah's story transcends simply reversing a difficult situation. It embodies a strong will to demand rights. It serves as a reminder to all of us that no matter how tough the circumstances, if we unite and stand up for what is right, we can create positive changes in our community. As we think about the future, let us remember that the power of will and compassion does not belong solely to one person, but to an entire community. Sarah has demonstrated that when we take the time to listen and support each other, anything is possible. It is this solidarity that ensures many children will no longer have to worry about their health in an environment where rules are no longer barriers, but necessary supports for growth and safety. Sarah's story is not just a lesson about rights and responsibilities, but also an inspiration for each of us, reminding us that we can stand up, fight, and protect what is most valuable in life: the health and happiness of our children.